That that was the Knicks game. It was a choke fest by the Wizards. Another one of the typical Wizards losses. And really, the only thing that people kind of cared about during this game was everything else that had happened outside of the Wizards because it was trade deadline day. And the Wizards choking a game to the Knicks when they were up 17 is nothing new. The general anatomy of a Wizards fan is about 80% sadness and like 20% disdain for ownership that just has no kind of urgency whatsoever. So the Wizards initially seemed like they weren't going to make any moves during trade deadline day, and surprisingly enough, one of the guys that was being showcased, and one guy got moved from the Wizards. Those two guys were Troy Brown Jr. and Mo Wagner. Mo Wagner ended up being a Celtic at the end of the day, even though he initially got traded to the Bulls. The Bulls kind of just quickly threw him over to Boston, while the Bulls just kept hold of Troy Brown Jr. And of course, knowing every other time that we traded with the Bulls, at least when we traded Otto Porter Jr. there, he seemed to turn into God every time he played against the Wizards and just seemed to have some kind of decent play as opposed to being stuck under a coach, which is hilarious because he had to deal with Jim Boylan, and he just now got like a decent coach, but now he's on the Magic. But yeah, Troy Brown Jr. is going to be in Chicago and most likely will flourish there. And then Mo Wagner's in Boston. Daniel Gafford fixes one problem for the Wizards, and that was rebounding, sort of. But at the same time, he seems to be a bit of a foul machine and has not developed any offensive abilities beyond dunking, from what I understand. And while it's nice that he fixes a weakness, the whole thing that kills the Wizards in certain points in time, because probably one of the reasons they choked and one of the reasons they struggled when they got blown out by the Knicks last time was a lack of spacing around Bradley Beal. And last season, the floor was so spaced, or at least it was spaced enough that Brad could operate. But here, a lot of the times, guys can double up on him, while the Wizards' form of trapping anybody is kind of a adventure. Pick your own adventure. Pick your own poison. Most teams can trap Beal, and so you want to craft a team that has enough spacing so that trying to trap Beal is actually a bad move on their part. But it's the Wizards, so you try to somewhat fix one problem, but you exacerbate the other, and ultimately you're stuck in the middle. As far as if Chandler Hutchison's going to even get minutes, I don't know, because that's the other big factor, coaching. Coaches have to actually play the players and play them consistently, and I don't have to elaborate any further on that. So the Wizards did make moves, but it seems like these moves are going to benefit the players they sent out more than the players they brought in. And until they make any organizational wide shifts, I can't really look at this move with too much optimism. I have to basically hope that the coach decides to do his job, and while the Wizards continue to choke away games and unintentionally tank, so the number one pick becomes in play, I still don't know. So all in all, the Wizards made a move. They did things. Is it going to affect the Eastern Conference? Nope. It's going to affect the Wizards. It just changes the names on the jerseys, really. And until anything big happens, it's just the Wizards are kind of stuck in no man's land at the moment. So yeah, if you wanted some hard-hitting analysis, I mean, yeah, Julius Randle used his gravity and post-ups to get threes, and the Wizards can't defend threes. That's at least what I thought about with that blowout. And then I'm sure the comeback featured guys hitting threes and the Wizards not defending. You know, the Wizards only really give a crap about a game after they've been beaten down or it's too late, basically. They are the procrastinating student who actually doesn't graduate. The Wizards' next game is against the Pistons. If we were a good team, if the Wizards were a good team, I'd say something along the lines of like, okay, this is a trap game. Don't fall for this. But the Wizards are pretty much an enigma, and they could either blow the brakes off the Pistons or Jeremy Grant will torch them, and their young guns will have enough freedom and teamwork to beat us. I don't know. So yeah. To say there's confidence in the Wizards would be a lie. Well, this guy says, I don't know many wizards from Detroit, and I don't really know many wizards that like cars. They're all kind of broom fanatics. But maybe, you know, the next generation, you know, like how we have TikTok, like maybe next generation wizards like, Dad, like maybe you should invest in like some gear for your broom. And Dad's just like, no, I will use this old dusty broom until it can't fly anymore, as it sputters, you know, much like the wizards, sputtering along. So will they survive against modern technology? Or at least a piece of it? Who knows? It's the Wizards. WizWatch!